Hey guys, in this episode I'm going to talk about how you can add paging to your grid view. The way I've added paging to my grid view is as a part of the component so that every time I use grid view, paging will come by default. And you can see that I've added previous and next buttons, first and last buttons to my grid view. And even after filtering the grid view, paging works just fine. Let's jump into the demo. You can see that right now I have this authors grid, but I do not have paging attached to my grid view. So the first thing that I need to do, I need to make sure that I have a copy of this list so that I can show only the list of authors on the page that I want to go to. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to create the copy of the items that I want to iterate through. So I'm going to copy this, the parameter, which this is what is coming from the parent component. And I'm creating a copy of item, and I'm going to call it as item list. And I'm going to use this item list for showing the paging. So I'm not going to iterate through items now. I'm going to iterate through item list when it comes to showing the items on the on UI. And then now that I have this copy, I will have to assign this item list from my items, and I'm gonna do that on all initialized event. So I'm gonna say override on initialized, and once I do that, then I'm going to assign the first 5 items. So item list will show the page that you are on. So item list is going to show the first 5 items from the items which are going to get passed from my parent. So to do that, I'm going to use take function, which will give me the first 5 items. So instead of passing 5 as a hard-coded value, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a property called as page size. So I'm going to create a property. It's an integer property. I'm going to call it as it's a page size. And I will assign page size to 5 when I initialize the component. You can have this as parameter too when you create the component, when you assign your grid view, but I'm just going to have this as a hard-coded value as of now. I'm creating this page size as property so that I can use this page size across my component. So now that I have these items, I would like to take the first 5 items from the items which are getting passed and assign it to item list, which are going to get shown on my UI. So I'm going to say page size, and then I'm going to say to list. This should show only the first 5 items on my UI. Let's run this and see if this is working or not. So if I go to authors page, you can see that now it's showing the first 5 items. Now I'm going to add buttons which will take me to each pages. And before I create these buttons, before I add these buttons, I'll have to figure out what should be the number of those buttons. So first we'll have to calculate the total pages. And to do that, I'm going to first create the property. I'm going to create a property and call it as total pages so that I know how many number of pages I should have. And to calculate these total pages, what I'm going to do, I'm going to divide the number of items by the page size, and that's how I will get the total pages. Let's say there are 20 items. Then if I divide 20 items by 5, I should have 4 pages, right? And let's say if there are 23 items, then if I divide 23 by 5, it's still going to return 4, but I need to have 5. To do that, I'm going to convert the division into decimal. So let's get first item counts. And then I'm going to divide it by page size, right? And this will return 4 because 23 divided by 5, it's going to return an integer, which will be 4. So let's convert that into decimal, and then to get 1 plus, to show the last 3 items on 23, I'll have to use math ceiling. I'm going to say math ceiling, which will give me that extra count when it comes to calculating the decimals. This returns decimal, so I'm gonna say that please convert that into integer, and this will have the total pages. So currently I think I have 23 authors, so when I divide that by 5, which will give me 5 total pages. So now that I have the total pages, I should use this count for creating the buttons, right? So to create the buttons, I'm going to create those buttons under my grid view. So I'm going to create a div, and then use for loop. I'm going to use for loop, integer I is equal to 0 and I less than total pages, and I plus plus. Right? And here in this loop, I'm going to create buttons dynamically. And these buttons will have class. I'm going to say these are buttons and button info, so they look a little nicer. And the text of this button is going to be I plus 1 because, you know, I starts at 0, so it should be I plus 1. So I'm going to say I plus 1, so it shows the correct number of the page. Sweet. Let's run this and see if this is working or not. Run it and go to authors page. You can see that now I have 5 buttons so that I can navigate to different pages, right? Now we should handle the event, the click event on these buttons. So whenever I click on these buttons, what I would like to do, I would like to update my list. I would like to take the 3rd page and skip every other page so that only it shows the 3rd page on my grid. So basically I'm going to need a function called as update list, which will take page number as a parameter. So I'm going to create a private function called as update list, and this takes page number as the parameter. And now here, like I said, I'll have to skip some items and only show the items on that page number. And to calculate what I need to skip, I'm going to use this logic page number multiplied by page size, and we'll skip these items and then take next 5 items, which will give us the correct page when someone clicks on update list. To do that, so let's use this logic for getting item list, and I'm going to use it from items. I'm gonna skip page number into page size, and then I would like to take next 5, which is the page size, and to list. And that's all you need to do to get the correct item list when someone clicks on a particular button. But then again, we'll have to use this function. We'll have to map this function to the buttons that we have created. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go to button and say here, it's an onclick event. It's an onclick event, and I would like to call update list here. So I'm going to say please call update list, and this will take the index of the page. To do that, I'm going to create a variable here because I keeps on changing. So I'm going to say this is a variable, and it's a variable per page number, and assign it to I. And then I'm going to assign page number as part of this. So every time someone clicks on these buttons, it will go to this update list with the page number, and then it will change the item list depending on which page number that you're clicking on. Let's run this. So if I go to authors page, you can see that now I have these buttons, and when I click on these buttons, now it's taking me to appropriated pages. Awesome, right? Now what I would like to do, I would like to change the CSS of these buttons. I would like to make the button, the page that I'm on, make the button darker so that the user knows which page they're on. So for that, I'm going to need to store what's the current page, right? What's the current page that we are on. So to do that, I'm going to create a property. Create a property and call it as current page. And every time someone updates the list, I'm going to set the current page with the page number which they have changed it to. And now I can compare this current page with the button CSS that I've assigned here. So instead of just using button info, I'm going to put condition here. I'm going to put condition saying that if the current page matches the page number of the index, if it matches, then I would like to show button dark, else I would like to show button info, which is every other button info. Sweet. And if I run this, that should work. Let's put this in new line. Yeah, that should work. Let's run this. So if I go to authors page, and you can see that I'm on the first page and this button is dark. If I click on these buttons, then the CSS of the button changes and I know which page I'm on. Sweet. Now that we added the buttons and then we changed the CSS, let's add previous and next button so that instead of clicking on these buttons, I could just go to previous or next page. To do that, I'm going to add a button on top of the buttons that we have added. This is going to be a single button, so I'm going to say this is a single button. And the class of this button is going to be button secondary, so it looks a little different. And I'm going to call it as previous. And here, I'm going to call a function called as navigate to so that it knows where to navigate to depending on which button has been clicked. And I'll have to pass the direction of the button so that I know if it's previous or next button, right? So I'm going to create a function for that. The function, I'm going to call it as void navigate to and pass string value, which will be direction. And I'm going to use this direction. For calculating the current page and then update my list. So let's say if it's a previous, if the direction is equal to previous, then I would like to set the current page -1, right? Current page -1. But I don't want to do this if the current page is already on 0. So I'm going to say that don't do this when current page is already on 0. Sweet. And same thing we're going to do when it comes to going to the next page. But we need to make sure that the current page is not equal to total pages -1. We added one page to total page, and that's why I'm checking -1. But when I click on next, it should add something add 1 to the current page, and then eventually update the list and pass current page into it. Sweet. Okay, so now that we have this function, let's call this function if it's previous or next, right? So the button that we added, I'm going to say on click of this button, I would like to call navigate to. And here I'm going to pass previous instead of previous, and then when it comes to setting next, here I'm gonna pass next, so that the next button should come after all the buttons have been rendered. So I'm gonna put it after all the buttons, all the dynamic buttons that we're creating. And text, I should change it to next. So this will navigate to previous, and this will navigate to next. And navigate to function handles how the previous and next should work, and then according to that it updates the list. Sweet, let's run this. So if I go to authors page, you can see that I now have previous and next buttons. So if I click on next, it navigates to next pages, and I click on previous, it goes to previous buttons. And it even if I have in the middle of the page, it goes to next and previous. Awesome. So now that I have previous and next, I want to add first and last page so that it's easier to navigate across our grid view. First and last page is pretty easy. For first page, I'm going to just pass, I'm just going to pass here first when it comes to navigating, and change the text to, I'm going to add some arrows here so that it looks nicer, like this. And when it comes to going to the last page, I'm going to say this is last page. And the arrows, I'm going to change it like that. Awesome. Now that we have the buttons, let's handle first and last string, how it's going to be. First and last strings are going to be super easy because, you know, we don't have to worry about if it's a current page, is 0 or not. The only thing that we need to make sure that it goes to the first page. So for going to the first page, I'm going to set the index to 0, just go to 0th page. And when it comes to going to the last page, I don't have to check this. I'm just going to say if it's the last page, then directly go to total -1. Total pages -1. Awesome. Sweet. Let's run this. Yeah, this should work. Let's run this. If I go to authors page, you can see now I have, I did not change the text. I think I put the wrong button there, but you can see that if I click on this, it goes to the first page. If I click on this, it goes to the last page. If I go to previous, it goes to the previous page. The only difference is like I flip-flop this, but you get it, right? Like if I put it on the last page, it goes to the last page. If I click on this, it goes to the first page, and paging works just fine. Okay, but one thing that to notice here that our filter header is broken now, because the reason why this is not working is because we copied the items into item list, and when items get updated, the items are getting updated, the item list is not getting updated. So we'll have to tell a child component to update the list and update the UI for paging whenever the search happens, right? So let's first fix this, and then we will fix our on filter event. To do that, I'm gonna go back to my code, and here I'm gonna put the first button to here, and then let's go and fix our filter header search. To fix that, what I have done, I have created a property. I created a property in my parent component called as is Gridview filtered, and this boolean gets set whenever I am changing the text, whenever I'm changing the search text, whenever I'm filtering through my authors. And this is something which should get passed to my child component, so child component knows that it should update itself plus the paging number of buttons and you know how it should handle it, all that every time I'm filtering through my grid view. To do that, I'm going to create a parameter here which we are going to receive, and the parameter name I'm going to say as, this is also a boolean property, and Yeah, I'm gonna say that it's reload list because we want to reload the list every time the filter happens, right? And this is something that I'm going to map it to my authors grid. I'm gonna map it to my authors grid and say that we should map it to is Gridview filter, which gets set every time filter happens, right? So now I have the Boolean value. I'll have to use this Boolean value on render event, on after render event, so that I can update my item list and number of pages, right? So to do that, I'm gonna override the function. I'm gonna override the function on after render and on after render, and here what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say that if it's not a first render, and it's asking us to reload the list, then we should reload the list. We should update the list, and I'm gonna call here update the list for a function. But this update list takes a parameter, so it's gonna throw an error. So I'm gonna say the default parameter to 0. And then after that, I'm going to say that reload list should set to false because I don't want this to go into infinite loop. And then once the reload list is false, then let's go ahead and call state has changed so that it re-renders my page. Okay, so this will handle for updating the list of items which are there in Gridview. But then again, I'll have to calculate the total number of pages because the items have changed, item list has changed. So I'm gonna calculate the pages again into my update list function. So I'm gonna add it here. Sweet. Let's run this and see if this is going to work or not. So if I go to authors page, you can see that now the first and last button are in appropriated position, and previous and next is working fine. And when I search through my grid, you can see the paging changes depending on what the result is, and even the list is getting updated depending on what I'm searching. So if I say put A here, you can see that there are 3 pages now with A contains into my list here. Awesome, right? So this is how you can add paging for your grid view. When it comes to grid view, the possibilities are endless. So there are some use cases that I'm sure that I've missed. So feel free to put comments in the comment section, and we can talk about other possibilities too. And now that I've added this paging into my authors grid view, if I go to my publisher, that paging is there. So we do not have to add paging for different grid view differently. It gets added for each grid view. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me on Twitter, Facebook, or I go live on Twitch. So if you want to come and say hi, you can do. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye.